Welcome. It is no accident that you have found your way to the Release the Genie podcast. What would you do with 3 wishes? And what if you discovered that you are in fact that very genie that could grant them? Well, join us now as we discover who our next genie is as we listen in and learn the stories of triumph, inspiration, and passion with some very special guests. And now, without further delay, your host of the Release the Genie podcast, Mr. Paul Rogers.
That's so much better. So good morning, good afternoon, good evening from wherever you're tuning in from. I am your host, Paul Rogers, and welcome to another episode of Release the Genie. But today we have a fantastic genie and somebody I've had the pleasure of working with as well. Paul Donkers. Let me just give you a little background here. Paul is a sought-after global business coach and entrepreneur. He's dedicated his professional life to development of companies, management teams, and their business leaders. I met Paul through Ikigai. Now, if you haven't heard of Ikigai, you certainly will do. In 2018, Paul launched the Ikigai Coaching Institution. His aim is that to be able to reach and find, and people find their own Ikigai, 100,000 people before 2025. So, Paul, welcome to the show.
Welcome, Paul. Thank you.
You can tell from Paul's beautiful accent that he is actually in Holland. So it's quite amazing and global how we can talk each other now.
Absolutely.
So I've set the scene, Paul. I wonder if you could give us a little bit more about you.
All right. So I think you said it correctly. So basically, I'm trying to what I call create value for on 3 levels. I think it's on an organizational level. I try to help companies move forward, create more value, put their dots on unlock their ikigai or their purpose, if you will. I work with leadership teams, usually national or global, even global leadership teams. And then on the individual level, I help or try to enable people to unlock purpose, but also, increase effectiveness, increase their impact, develop as leaders. So that's what keeps me busy during the day, Paul.
Well, you see, and I'm a big fan of Ikigai, and for people who don't know, then we can walk people through this. But before I first met you, I thought that it was simply just one-to-one, but this has a really big impact for businesses going forward.
Yeah, I think so. I think, there's this whole, movement going on around the globe where, not only people, but I think also companies are kind of, doing some more soul searching, thinking about, why are we on this earth? And is it only profit maximization or is there something else? What would the world, I like the phrase, what would the world miss if we were not around? This is kind of turning the question around. And if we are working with a leadership team or with a top management team of a company, and we put this question on the screen, and this gives a fantastic, I think, starting point of a discussion. So, what I see in corporate life, at least, is that more and more companies start to rethink their own purpose, even at an organizational level. So, I don't know if it's completely new, but I see more awareness. I see more awareness everywhere. So it's not only for individuals, it's not only COVID triggered, whatever, but I see, there are a number of inspirational companies, I think, who are starting to be a benchmark or give us inspiration on moving forward with purpose.
I love it. And the application, as you say, it's global. And it's actually from the very top to the very bottom, back up to the top again. So I love that. I'm going to move on now to one of my favorite questions, which was, what was your Release the Genie aha moment?
Well, I don't know if it's been one moment. I mean, life is, like for all of us, I guess, a journey. Although it sounds a bit corny, but it is a journey. But I think for me, I had a corporate career. I was this a bit of classic corporate guy, and then I built something. I used to call myself an intrapreneur. So like behaving entrepreneurial, if you will, but within a corporate context. And, I was working in a Fortune 500 company, and I had a good job, a good management job. And, to a certain extent, I loved what I did. But I came to a point where I started to realize more and more that it was not for me. I mean, not in the long run. This was not, not for me, the best place to continue to add value. And then when I turned 39, I came to a point where I felt I needed to move on. And this was quite a strong feeling, but I felt like, in a way, a bit like almost like in a prison. Perhaps that's a bit too strong a word, but, a bit like you are in a prison. So I started talking about my future to my employer, and and ultimately we found some kind of agreement for me to move on, and to leave what I built in corporate, to leave it behind in a healthy way. But then it was the end of 2008, beginning of 2009. So you probably remember when we had the previous crisis, right? The financial crisis, and to this day, I turned 40 at 21st of March on 2009. I went to the Chamber of Commerce on the 19th of March, so 2 days before I would turn 40. But also that was the same week, or I don't know, or a week later or earlier, that Lehman Brothers fell over, which was in hindsight one of the, the deepest points that we had in the crisis. But I still felt very strong that was the moment for me to do it. And then when and what I learned is of course I had a couple of sleepless nights. I'm not a robot or whatever, but I learned that when you close one door, it was really true that then only then, because I really closed the other door, that also people in my network, people I talked to, really felt that I really had taken the leap. And and quite soon the first missions and assignments came in, and I was able to build something new. But it was only because I closed the door first, and I guess trust or release the genie. And that's a period in my life, I think, between March and April, May, June, that when the first assignments came in, that I will never forget. And especially some of these first people that give you assignments, that trust you with your business or with their business, sorry, are so critical to be able to build up something. And one of the, I don't know if you've worked in corporate, Paul, but one of the misleadings can be if you are like I was a bit of a senior manager in a corporate environment, you can start to think that all the attention you get, all the invitations you get, that they are because of you, but they are because of your role. And somewhere at a rational level, of course, this. But I can tell you one thing from real life: the moment you turn on you give back your telephone and your computer and your car, and you're all on your own, the phone calls quickly stop and the emails quickly stop. So, and then it really comes down to who you are and what you are able to achieve.
Yeah, so true, and so much good value there. I mean, I do remember the 2009. I was a commercial lawyer at the time, and it completely blew my market away. And it was not long after that actually I left as well my job. So I remember that very well. But one of the things which I know people now, and this is going to be really sort of relates, is the feeling of being stuck, the feeling of fear of one thing ending.
Yeah.
And you've been able to show that there's light on the other side.
Yeah, absolutely. And and I'm not going to say that it's easy or but at a certain level, I mean, you arrive at a certain point in your life where you can collect more and more information. Am I going to do it or not? But to a certain extent, it will always be a bit of a jump. And if you let it, if you get stuck or if you get frustrated when you're in corporate, if it's not for you, I mean, I'm not going to advise everybody to become an entrepreneur, correct? Please understand me correctly here. But, if you really want to do it, at some point, you're just going to have to make the jump. Otherwise, you will never notice. And what usually helps me a bit psychologically is also, I'm not, a risk taker per se, but life involves some kind of risk, and thinking through the worst case scenario. And in my case, it would be something like, let's try it for a year. If I can get nothing done, or if after a year, I feel completely frustrated, you can always go back. And I thought, when I decide after 1 year, corporate or going back to a company is ultimately better for me. What would I think if I were the hiring manager and you would get a guy to your desk like me who took a risk, who really understood that it was not for him? I would probably hire the guy. So it's also a matter of thinking through a worst case scenario, and then at some point, embrace the risk and just do it. The mantra from Nike.
No, I think you're right. Sometimes it helps to have a little push, though, just in case you lack a bit of motivation. I know, then it sounds very similar. We had the push at that last financial crisis, and a lot of people are facing that same push now. So
yeah.
It's a lesson that keeps on coming around, Paul. So it's
absolutely. No, absolutely.
So I wonder now, because this would be really interesting, given what our conversation there is. There one particular quote or mantra that sort of, other than Nike, which you quickly shared with us, is there any other ones you have?
Well, it's perhaps not a quote so much, but for me there are three key words I think that keep coming back, and that's trust. Trusting that some things will be okay, or you could even replace this with patience, perhaps. So trust, patience, I think, is something that has been critical and serving me well in my professional life. The second one is, having a vision or having an idea where you want to go to. You can translate it as ikigai or whatever, but something like a purpose, a daily purpose. Why do I get up in the morning? Getting away, if you're on autopilot, how do you break through this cycle of being on autopilot? And then the third element for me, which has been critical as well, is what I call execution. So I think that's the Nike mantra again. So at some point you need to do it and keep doing it and be persistent in what you're doing. So the combination of trust, vision, or ikigai or purpose, and execution, I think if you are able to get things moving on those three areas, then you are able to achieve some magic if you continue to do this.
I think you're right. So much stuff is about movement and momentum. You can have a really good idea, but if it just stays an idea and you then you have the vision, you haven't got the trust in yourself or other, and then the execution part, I can see you just get lost in the chapter.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I see people, but also companies, I do a lot of work with companies also on strategy execution, and I see so many companies and also so many people on an individual level who get what I use the metaphor like they get trapped in a whirlwind, right? So the whirlwind sucks all their energy away. The business acts on them. They are no longer able to step out of their own whirlwind, look at themselves. Why are we on this earth as a company? What are we actually trying to achieve here? They lose sight of their priorities. They lose sight of their actions. And it is, I think, to be successful, it is critical to learn, every now and then go back to your purpose, go back to your vision, refine it, perhaps rethink it, whatever, realign yourself to the purpose, and then focus again and back to execution, but stay on track. And and coaches, for instance, or systems can work miracles there if you are able to have people around you or have systems around you that help you stay on track here. And apparently it's only human to forget about this when we are in the details, and we need to learn ways to get out of the details and then back again into the details, because details matter, but you cannot get lost in them, and that's a big difference.
I think you're right. It's there's a lot of people who work in their business rather than on their business, and I get that. That's really, really good advice. So it may be that we've already touched on this already. Is there one sort of setback or failure, or have we already sort of covered that part?
Well, one failure, setbacks, I think, setbacks, if you are doing what I am doing, or, especially in the beginning when I started out, and let's go back to 2009 again, when I got started. So I was telling you about, how I started, how I went to the Chamber of Commerce on March 19th. But then during that summer, the summer of 2009, when everybody was like, oh, and the crisis, and you remember, Paul, the pictures of guys in the city walking with their boxes, and the guys on Wall Street walking with their boxes with their pictures and their files and whatever. And that was burned in everybody's mind, right? And then I was telling you about not being perceived as important anymore, because you're no longer a corporate executive. And I remember one of those summer days, 2009, and I was outside. I was taking a stroll or a walk. I don't remember exactly. And, and my telephone didn't ring at all anymore. But I was, of course, dying to try to get some business, right? So to survive or to get started, whatever. And then I remember one of those hot days, and I was taking a walk. I get a call, but the call was, it was like something from Hewlett Packard or something. So I forgot. So staying, so back to my mantra. So trusting that it will be okay, be patient, have an idea, and keep on executing. And, and that has been for me, the formula. Eventually it will start to pay off. And you just need to keep going.
I think that's,
with there's not just one failure or not. Life is full of setbacks, but as long as you can, kind of embrace them or accept that they are there, it becomes so much easier.
I think you're absolutely right. And it's the more you resist a moment or something, the more stress you pile up.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I love it. I love it. Wow. Anyone who's in corporate now will actually, they'll remember that cold breeze of not the phone ringing. So I get that.
I remember this so vividly that in the beginning, I think it took me perhaps even 12 months or so to really kick off I don't know if you recognize this, Paul, but like it was like you were constant on a rush of adrenaline or something. I really had to get used to another rhythm, and and life was acting on me, or business life was acting on me when I was a corporate executive. You have all these things going on. You have your people to manage, you have your bosses to manage, you have your peers to manage, you have clients to manage. And in a way, it becomes much more simpler when you're on your own in the beginning. But simpler as to what you have to, but everything has to come from you. And that's a huge difference.
Well, no, to be honest, it's night and day. And again, people want to watch this video back just to actually, you're not telling a glamorized story here. You're saying this is how it is. It's terrifying, but there are some really good things. There's control. There's other things you get back from sort of handing your golden cuffs back. So, well, look, this is going to be quite interesting. Who would you say is your hero? And they can be live, dead, make believe, or not. So, who is your hero?
Actually, that's a great question, and I find it hard to glamorize people, or just put one. I mean, people are people, and we all have our things going on. But I would like to say this: what I do. What I really think that somebody's really doing a great things is when I see entrepreneurs creating something, staying true to their vision, but also are able to do this, in the capitalist system we are living in altogether. Because, at the end of the day, every company needs to make some money, because it's, for the shareholders, for continuity. But I really admire people who have an idea, are able to create something from nothing, or turn something around and stay true to their vision or to their ideas, but do it within the capitalist system. That is, And I want to take out, one person I really have followed quite closely in the last 10 years, and that was the former Dutchman, by the way, but this is a coincidence. But he was a former CEO of Unilever, which of course is a huge company, the British Dutch food and beauty company. But he, a couple of things he did that I really admire. He put sustainability, as an intrinsic part on the agenda of Unilever, which is, of course, a classic big Fortune 500 company. But he put it in there, and he put it really, and he fought like a warrior, right? He put it in the DNA of the company. And another thing that I really admire about him is that he, for instance, getting away from this quarterly push from the markets, he changed that they are only releasing their figures once a year, so that there is some, that they could work on a strategy, execute on a strategy, and not like the rush from the markets in there. So, but there are many more, great entrepreneurs, but I also admire the way he is trying to, within a legacy company, which is huge, with a lot of pressure from the markets and from employees, and really making an impact in a company like this. This is something I have really admired about this guy. He's really worthwhile looking into, and there are on YouTube some speeches he gave on Stanford, etc. And it's really worthwhile to dive a bit deeper.
That's wonderful, because he's imprinted what he aligns with, but not sort of not in a airy-fairy. It's a commercial thinking as well. Exactly. So he's able to blend what he stands for, and commerciality, and that sort of thing that keeps the company at the top.
Exactly. And and if you look at it purely from a financial perspective, if you look at the value he's created for the shareholders, and that's where I really start to, if you can change a company, change it, stay true to your soul, keep the soul of the company alive, make it, adapt it to how the society is changing, and make money at the same time for your shareholders. Yeah, that's what I really admire when I see that happening.
I think that's wonderful. I really do. Thank you for that. That's great, and fantastic advice being dropped all over the place. So thank you for that as well. So Paul, look, tell us, what are you working on at the moment?
Well, the Ikigai Coaching Institute is actually taking a lot of my time right now. So, like you said in the beginning, I created the Ikigai Coaching Institute a couple of years ago with two goals. So the first goal is, I want to, via our community of Ikigai coaches around the globe, I want to enable at least 100,000 people to what I call unlock their Ikigai, or, loosely translated as your daily purpose, before the end of 2025. So that's, the dot on the horizon that I put there. But I have a second goal that I want to achieve with the Institute. Like we said earlier, I am in this coaching consulting industry for almost 25 years, and I've met so many, great coaches, very nice people who are working extremely hard to add value to their clients. But oftentimes I see them economically struggle. And with and through the Institute, I want to contribute to also help this community, or people that are, connected to the Institute, also economically become more successful. Because of course you can also improve on the delivery side and have a good systems and a good tools. And of course we are providing all of this. But I really think that if we are able also to, help or assist or enable our community of coaches also to economically get more successful, this will ultimately also pay off to the work that they can do in their communities. So these are the two things I am working on.
I think the word community, and it came up a couple of times there, and I think it's so important. I mean, I'm also a member of that community, and so, but
I know.
And look, see, I even have my Ikigai cards with me. There you go. Quick, and look at that snap. Do the course, guys. You won't regret it. But I think it's right to actually it's very much a pay it forward type thinking. It's, there's a skill set, there's a type, there's a group. How can they actually then spread the word and get it out there?
No, absolutely. And I see a lot of, individual practitioners in our industry who have a limited impact. But if we are, if we are together and go moving forward as a community or as a group, we are able to have much, much, much more impact.
I can see now why you said about Unilever's CEO. I'm kind of seeing a little bit of that trickle across to the coaching and the Ikigai community. I love it. Love it.
Yeah, well, that's actually interesting. And I know that Unilever insisted, I don't know exactly the timing, but I think it was something like 7-8 years ago or so. They insisted that all of their employees started also to think about their own purpose. So they had a whole, initiative going on in Unilever, not just at the organizational level, but everybody in the company was at some point also triggered to think about, why are you coming to work each morning and what are you actually trying to contribute? And yeah, but I so also ultimately, I think thinking about purpose and doing this in a corporate perspective will also, help companies to get better motivated people at the end of the day. But it requires a bit. They have to be brave, a little brave, but it will pay off for them, I'm sure.
It's kind of not following the herd mentality, of just mindlessly plugging in because everyone else does it. Yeah. Very good. Love it. It's very close to my heart, that. So I love it to bits. And now we can move to the second part of the show, which is the time where I get to ask you, Almighty Genie, for my 3 wishes. So are you ready?
Okay, I am.
It is. I knew that. So my first wish is, what is the best advice you have ever received?
Yeah, I find that a difficult question because it's probably not one piece of advice, but I want to tell you 2 things. I want to tell you about a book, but first I want to tell you about a couple of mentors. And the point where I'm at this point in my life is, I think, largely due to a number of people that picked me up at a certain point in my life and trusted me with missions, with things I had to do. And I would advise everybody, if you're younger or older, look for a couple of people around you that are, that put their trust in you and listen to them, interact with them, because I think you can only move forward if you are able also to listen to other people and to open yourself up. I see this a lot with, especially men, but you see it everywhere, that people think that they have to know everything, but you can never know everything. So I like it when Marshall Goldsmith, for instance, says, none of us has all the answers, and that's so true. So we need to learn that there's more that we don't know than that we do know. So look for mentors, and each of my mentors, whether it was Steve Harrison, who gave me the first opportunity, an American who gave me the first opportunity to start Liegt Harrison in the Netherlands, whether it was an uncle who gave me, a first job opening when I was only 20 years old, back in the days, until today, I still have some people around me who continue to support me. So that's my first part of my answer. The second part of my answer is a book about purpose, I think, at perhaps its deepest level, and it's a bit of a sad story, because it's the book written by Viktor Frankl, the psychiatrist who was, who was in Auschwitz and survived. And I think the key lesson he teaches us in his book, The Search for Men's Meaning, is, that they can take away everything from you, but you always have an opportunity, or you can decide how you are going to respond or react to the things that are happening to you. And again, it's of course it's a sad situation, but I think it's one of the key. By the way, this book was once given to me by one of my mentors and former bosses when I was still in corporate. So that made a big impact on me, that book.
No, you're absolutely right. It's that's a book which is referred to so many different times, and as you said, there are some really, really amazing takeaways that is obviously split into two parts, and so you need to read them both together. And fantastic. No, I'm a big fan of choice, which is of
Yeah.
course one of his big lessons there. So wow. Well, okay, we've hit on a global book as well. My goodness. So number two, which is, what advice would you give your younger self?
I would probably, in hindsight, learn the skill and the habit of patience a bit earlier on. And the second would probably be to trust that things will be all right, that you can, that it's okay to stay still. And, I am grateful for all the things I've learned in corporate, and I got opportunities I normally would never have gotten, I believe. But probably in hindsight, perhaps I could have started my own entrepreneurial life a bit earlier if I had a bit more trust in, that it would be okay. That, if I close, like I said, if you close the door, another one will open. So that would probably be my key advice to myself.
No, to be honest, backing yourself is very important. And we all go through the same sort of hoops that actually we're like, do you know what, if only. But the difference between a lot of people who say if only is you actually then went and did it. So
Yeah.
So
yeah, well, that was also a point, when I was reflecting on all of this. But you can, at some point, you can keep thinking about it, but yeah, but nothing new will come from all the thinking. And if you want to do it, at the end of the day, the only proof you will get is to actually try it.
I love it. And the only limitations are the ones which we place on ourselves. So
Yeah.
wow. Well, okay. My God, we're in the zone now, Paul. Right. Number three. Could you share with us one of your personal habits that attribute to your success?
Yeah, I'm coming back to some of the things I've said earlier in the show, Paul. But I believe that to a certain extent, I am able now to to be able to execute, to have a vision, to have an idea, but also not get distracted, because I'm a type of guy who, I wake up in the morning and I get ideas all the time. So I never have I never have a shortage of ideas. But with my character, I have learned over the years to get ideas, but prioritize them or make a selection of them, and then rigorously, fully focus on execution and really drive it through. And I think, that's a balance I have learned to strike pretty well now these days. So I do not, I am pretty focused, I think, when I do something. And that helps me a lot, I believe.
Well,
And
yeah, I mean,
with a lot of this, Paul, I compare this, a lot of these things, habits or routines. I am a strong believer in the power of habit, which is actually a book, I think, a title of a book as well. But a lot of this is like when you train a muscle. If you do it a lot, and you will get stronger and stronger and stronger and better about it. We are simple human creatures, but we are a bunch of habits all together. And we can train them. And you don't train as a person, as I think, so much in your personality and your drivers, but on a habit level, you can make so many changes and tweaks and improve if you want.
Yeah, I mean, habits, as you said, can change. You just have to set your mind to actually making that happen.
Yeah.
And it's not easy. It's not easy, but if you're disciplined, which I think what we were saying, then it starts to pay. Then you won't see it maybe immediately, but over a period. We're talking the same language here, my friend. Well, look, 3 wishes, and I've knocked them all out of the park on. So I'm very pleased with the value I'm getting here. Being a corporate man, you know what value is. So, well, last before we sort of wrap up and where we can find you is, do you have any book which you could recommend? We also mentioned Viktor Frankl, but is there any other books which you sort of can recommend?
Yeah. Well, I'm a reader. So I recommend everybody also watching the show today, if you want to develop yourself, get into the habit of some reading. I mean, or listen, whatever, or watch things, but learn to get yourself out of the whirlwind. Invest some time in reading or developing yourself, because if you are, this will also pay huge dividends, like we were saying. And I can pick out many books, but one of the books that I really enjoyed, that I read quite recently, is a book called Creativity Inc. And that's the book written by Ed Catmull, one of the founders of Pixar, that we all know was, of course, the American animation company that was ultimately sold to Walt Disney, of course. But what I really enjoy about the book is actually two things. One is, the power of storytelling. So they make it so clear. Stories like Nemo, like they are all in our heads, I think. The power of storytelling is so important. But what I also enjoy is, how he describes, how he uses, the wisdom and the experience of the teams to create the best stories for their audience. So they all work intensely together on these movies, and it's real teamwork. And what I absolutely enjoy about the book is, how do you monetize such a creative process? Because there are a lot of companies really struggling with, they have fantastic ideas, but they were able to make it commercially successful. And that's, again, I find that a great and inspiring story. So Creativity Inc. by Ed Catmull, the founder of Pixar.
Love it. Now that's and thank you for the sort of the summary of what the lessons are in there as well. So thank you. That's a great recommendation. Well, look, where can we find you? Because actually we've talked all around. Where can we get hold of you now?
Of course, on most of the social channels. So I'm on LinkedIn. If you want to connect, I'm happy to connect. You can follow on LinkedIn, actually, the Ikigai Coaching Institute. So if you just want to follow what we are doing, you can follow us on LinkedIn. I do some posts on Instagram as well. So it's donkers.paul. And then, of course, we have the website, which is the ikigaicoachinginstitute.com, which is a bit of a long name, but you will find it when you Google it.
It may be a long name, but it's pretty good to remember as well. So so it kind of flows. So, look, I'm going to do a very quick summary here. I mean, to be honest, you've shown how important it is to align yourself, not just personally, but professionally, and to be brave, to trust, and to execute what your plan is, rather than just let it float around as a plan. So I can see why companies and individuals would really benefit from working and being with you. So for my point personally, when I went through the Ikigai course with you, I learned a huge amount. So I'd like to say thank you for that as well. Well, that's great. Well, look, Paul, thank you very much for being today's Genie. Did you enjoy yourself?
Absolutely, Paul. And thank you for asking me those questions, giving me the opportunity to share some of this. And, let me also finish by saying that it's really fantastic to have you as a member of our community and one of our professional Ikigai coaches over in Canada. So that's really a blessing.
You see, we don't do so bad over the other side of the pond. Look. Well, look, thank you everyone for tuning in. I hope you've enjoyed this, and also you've got a better, if you've not heard of the word Ikigai, well, count how many times we said it and you might get a prize. So feel free to reach out to Paul, and thank you once again to my wonderful guest. And everyone, I want you to go and find your Ikigai and purpose, and we'll see you in the next one. Thank you for now.
Well, that's a wrap. You have been listening to yet another episode of the Release the Genie podcast with host Paul Rogers. Be sure to follow Paul on the LinkedIn platform and learn more of Paul's resources at www.takeactionacademy.ca. And until next time, As always, be mindful and be sure to release your genie. Thanks for listening.